Hey guys, Cilantro here. Wanted to release a little bit of a video about FTL. Now, if you've been watching my stream at all recently, you know that I have a quite a passion for this game. It's a very fun roguelike. Like it's not quite a roguelike, but it's very similar. Permadeath, and you have a character essentially, which is your ship that you have to level up and so on. But this guide is going to be kind of just like an off-the-cuff tutorial about how to play the game. It's intended to help players who might be having some trouble winning the game, and I'm actually going to just kind of do a playthrough and record a few segments when inspiration strikes me. As I go through the game, I'm actually going to use the Kestrel, the starting ship. Everybody gets the ship. It's actually a very good ship. It's actually, in my opinion, one of the better ships. The Burst Laser 2 is a fantastic weapon to start off with because it's very good late game, if you will. Yeah, without any further ado, I'm just going to start playing, and as inspiration strikes, I will record. And actually, right off the bat, I have something I'd like to say. Power management is very important as you progress in the game. One thing you should always be aware of is where your power is and such, and be very familiar with the space bar. You know, don't be afraid to pause and take stock of situations. There are many times where I even find myself, feeling a little overwhelmed in combat, and never be afraid to just pause the game and just take stock of your surroundings. Just say, okay, look, this is getting a little scary. Let me double check my power usage. Let me double check my crew to make sure they're in the correct spots. Be aware of what's going on. It's a very good thing to have is solid awareness of the situation at hand. Another thing I'd like to touch on real quick is the actual map itself. I think it's important that when you enter a sector, you should check the exit and see what all beacons jump to it. There's actually an option that I think a few players may not know about in the options menu, which is right here, to show beacon paths on hover. If that's disabled, then I'll go ahead and disable it to show you here. When you do this, you don't get the nice little paths. And I don't see any reason not to use this. This is a very, very useful tip. I mean, there are some times where, if you look at this map, you might think, oh, I can get to the exit from, this location, when it turns out you actually might not be able to. So when you enter a new area, double check this, make sure that the exit is easily accessible, and then plan your route accordingly. And another thing about the Rebel fleet's advancement, not many people know this, but in civilian sectors and Rebel controlled sectors, the Rebel fleet actually advances more quickly, meaning that you'll get less farm in that sector. And roguelikes, and this one being a roguelike tend to require a lot of farm. You really want to farm a lot. You don't want to be jumping aggressively towards the end unless you're absolutely confident that you can kill the last boss. So you want to squeeze every last little drop of farm you can get out of a sector. And in fact, nebulas slow the progress of the Rebel fleet by, I think, roughly half. But not nebula sectors on the map. The little purple ones, maybe I'll show them later in the video. Those are not affected by that rule. But in a non-nebula sector, nebula jumps cause the Rebel fleet to pursue you a little less quick. Of course, those also could be a little dangerous, but live dangerously. You're gonna have to take some risks in roguelikes sometimes. Well, I've managed to do a little bit of farming here at the beginning of the game. I'm actually in Sector 2, and got a few extra crew members. One thing about crew members, I would generally advise, especially when you're first starting out in the game, to put your initial crew members in things that make you tougher. And in fact, I would also advise that you should spend your scrap on things that make you tougher, including shields especially. The second shield level makes such a huge difference, especially early game. And I mean, taking damage is obviously never a good thing, but I mean, the lower amounts of damage you take, the less frequently you'll have to visit shops to repair. You'll spend less scrap on repairs. You'll spend less time sidetracked or even worried about dying. The Kestrel, the ship you start with, the ship that I'm playing with, is pretty good. It really can take out pretty much every ship that you run into for more or less the first half of a game without any weapons upgrades. So I would advise that you spend your scrap almost exclusively on ship upgrades to make it more defensive. So get your shields to level 2 as soon as you can, and get your engines to level 4 as soon as you can. Level 4 engines is a very cost-efficient way to make you a lot tankier, and the sooner you level your engines up on the ship's end, the more easily you'll be able to get your characters, your crew's abilities up, their actual skill with the stuff, because you level engines and piloting whenever you dodge. So the more dodge you have, the more dodge you will get more quickly. And shields are leveled every time that your shields are replenished in combat. And I'll probably touch more on this a little bit later. Okay, so I'm a little further. That was rude. I'm a little further in the game. I wanted to show you guys a nice little trick that you can do if you are having trouble with the game. There's no shame in doing this. In my opinion, when you play roguelikes, you know, every last little trick that you know should be used and exploited to its full potential. And this nice little trick that I'm about to show you is a pretty easy one, and it's one of my favorite, actually. If you'd like to get maxed out skills for your crew members, and you can do this to as many crew members as you want, find yourself a ship. An enemy ship that literally cannot kill you. In this case, this ship literally cannot kill me. There's nothing I could do short of dropping my shields that would allow this guy to kill me. His single shot laser only drops my shields to a single level, and his beam weapons here can't pierce that single level of shield, so he will never kill me. Also, very important to note that he is not trying to run away. That's very, very crucial. And then what you can do, actually, is fire a auto-fire weapon of some sort, in which case I was lucky enough to get an ion blast, but a single-shot laser would work as well. Something on the offensive that will also not kill the enemy ship. Now, what's the point of staying in a stalemate like this? Well, this stalemate will allow you to level up your shield skill, piloting, engines, and weapon skills for free without having to put yourself at risk. You could literally just go AFK, make yourself a cup of coffee, read a book, take a shower, do whatever you want to do. And while you sit here in auto fire mode, your character will eventually level up their skills to max. You could level up your entire crew on this one single ship if you really cared to. And if you're new to the game and are having trouble beating it for the first time, do it. Seriously, do it. There's no harm in doing it. I mean, yes, it may take hours maybe, but I mean, heck, do some laundry or, whatever while you're doing it, The time invested can very much be worth it, because if you get to a fight where you look at it and say, man, if only I had 5% more evasion or faster recharging shields or weapons or something, and then you lose because you did not have that, you'll look back and say, well, I could have taken Sill's advice and farmed up my character's skills, but I didn't, so I'm suffering because of it. So don't be afraid to do this. Take your time, and I would just say, in general, taking your time is a good strategy in games like this, in roguelikes or anything similar to it. Especially one that's essentially, turn-based, or you just have full control over time. Pause the game when you need to. Don't hesitate. Oh, and actually, one more thing before I leave this fight. Although I am probably going to actually go AFK and let my skills charge up, because why not? Nice little trick you can do, and it's very dangerous at times. But if you get smart about it, you can actually level up your shield skill a lot quicker by using a nice little trick here. If you depower and repower your shields, you'll actually level up. Now, you only can get the skill ups if you're actually in a fight. You have to have something threatening you, but your shield skill, the shield skill of your crew members will actually level up every time your shields replenish. If you watch there, went up to 46. I don't know if you can see it, but I'm gonna actually try to time this so I don't actually kill myself. But after he takes a shot, I know he's not going to shoot me for a while, so I'm just gonna go ahead and depower and power my shield a few times. And this will actually level my shields a lot more quickly than if I was just sitting here. So if you want to do this, but you don't want to do it so tediously, yeah, you can just do that instead. Okay, well, I've been playing through a couple more sectors here. I haven't really had anything too eventful or inspiring happen. Actually, I've been kind of getting a little carried. My weapon situation isn't the greatest right now. I have a Pegasus, which is okay. I'm not a fan of missile launchers in general. And I still have, of course, my old trusty Burst Laser 2 and the Artemis I started with, as well as an Ion Blast. Managed to pick up drone control and some good drones. Crew teleporter, which I've been starting to use a little bit here and there, and a cloak. I mean, even if you don't get carried, which you know, it's not always going to happen. You always have to try to make the best with what you have. One general piece of advice is, if you find a store that has some good weapons in it, I mean, don't hesitate to buy good weapons, but don't always neglect the weapons that you find or anything like that. You know, weapons that you get are free. You know, the weapons that you have. If you sell them, you get half the money, which is, you know, nice. But I mean, you have to look at the overall amount of scrap that you're going to spend. You know, you're gonna give up something you have for something that you know, will have to pay for. The scrap that you use could be otherwise, the scrap that you use to buy something could otherwise be used to upgrade your ship or whatever. So just, well, I guess what I'm trying to say is be mindful of the scrap that you spend towards weapons and such. But as you can tell, yeah, I got a little carried here. I did have to buy it, but I did get a weapon pre-igniter, which my current setup isn't the greatest, but I'm hoping in the last few sectors here I'll be able to get some good stuff. And once you have level 4, essentially, so 2 tiers of shields and 4 levels of engines, I would definitely recommend going for a 3rd level of shields. That's sort of the bare minimum that I would really say you'd want in order to take on the last boss. So 3 levels of shields and 4, well, it's kind of confusing. 6 levels of shields, meaning 3 levels of shields, and 4 levels of engines is like, yeah, seriously, the bare minimum I would want to take on the boss. And it's usually enough. Especially if you have cloaking and a crew teleporter to take out some, you know, specific sections of the ship. Honestly, this is fine. This is enough. It should be plenty. And I would definitely recommend going for a 4th level of shields over any extra engines. As long as you have cloak. If you don't have cloak, then I could see you going for more engines. But the problem with engines is they start to get more expensive and you get less dodge. The next level, that brings you up to 25 dodge, is fine. 40 scrap isn't that bad, but you know, so you're paying 40 scrap for 5 dodge, so that's like what, 1 dodge per 8 scrap, and then the next level is 60 scrap and only gives you 3 dodge, so that's 1 dodge per 20 scrap. Not nearly as good of an investment in my opinion. So yeah. I would definitely say that's a good route to go. Also, another note here, subsystems, I'm notorious for not really using these, but to be quite honest, even getting a 2nd level of doors and sensors is not that expensive, and I would definitely recommend it. I usually wait to upgrade those later in the game, but I mean, there are some special events, especially that if you have 2 levels of sensors, you'll have access to, you know, special blue options in some event. And if you get even a single one of those, it's probably going to pay for the sensors by itself. So upgrade it early if you wish. Again, I'm kind of, you know, pretty bad about not doing it as much as I should, but I would recommend getting sensors. And then even the piloting isn't bad to get, or the door system. Yeah, you know what? Let's go ahead and grab all 3 of them. Okay, so here we are in the last stand. My ship is almost fully upgraded, but I'm going to hop through this sector and get a few more upgrades before I sort of go over my endgame strategy. I think it's important to realize that you can get farm in Sector 8. I think a lot of people, you know, come here and then rush right for the end boss. If you still have some upgrades you'd like to do on your ship, I mean, heck, you can find stores in Sector 8. So don't always assume that the best path is to just jump right towards the flagship. I mean, keep in mind that this little counter here, if this hits 0, I believe that is game over. So you want to make sure you don't dilly-dally too much. But, you know, sort of just start weaving your way over towards where the flagship is and eventually engage upon him. And, of course, keep in mind these repair places are pretty nice. They not only repair your ship, I think it's 10 health. Maybe it's not a full repair. I believe it's only 10 health. But they also do give you some of the other parts as well. They will give you fuel. They will give you missiles and drone parts. So if you're low on those, don't hesitate to swing over for some guaranteed goodness. Nothing wrong with that. All right, guys, here we are. We are right at the last jump before we go to the final fight. Now, this is generally a good idea, even if it's not to jump to the final fight. But, you know, before you go into the next area, if you're still kind of having trouble with the game, take some time to make sure all of your characters are healed up to full. Make sure all your systems are powered exactly how you want them to be. Before you get into the next area. Like, for example, right now this is what I want. Since I have a pre-igniter especially, I want to make sure all of my weapons are powered. I want my shields to be at level 4, my engines to be at level 4, and I want 2 floating powers so I can deploy one of the 2 drones that I want. Single point in O2 is fine. Single point in teleport is fine, and a single point in cloak is fine. And I'll go over some more of the finer points of that. One thing that I think some people don't quite realize is even if a system is not powered, having extra levels in it will actually serve as a buffer for that system. So even if I don't want to use all 4 levels of shields, if I need power for something else, having those 2 points right there, even if they're not powered, will mean that it'll actually take 3 points of damage to the shield system before I actually lose that level of shields. And so on for the rest of these. This is extremely important, actually, for the piloting system, which is actually fairly frail and is sort of the center of your defensive capabilities. Because if you don't have this, you don't dodge. It's pretty nasty if it gets taken out with a single shot. So even just putting a few extra little points in there might make or break the difference of the fight. So without any further ado, I think we're going to hop into the boss fight, and I will talk about the strategy that I use to fight him in detail. Again, this ship in particular, this particular run, I mean, I'm not going to lie to you, I definitely got carried pretty hard. I have some really good weapons. I have good, setup for drones. I have the automated reloader, which is amazing. Stealth weapons, which is one of my favorite upgrades. And the weapon pre-igniter. So I'll talk sort of in general terms of how the fight usually goes whenever I get here and when I feel comfortable that I'm going to win, and some things to look out for. Anyway, let's get into it. Okay, so here we are, final boss fight. Now the first phase, he has all 4 of his weapons. This is a triple shot ion cannon. This is a triple shot laser cannon. This is a triple missile. And this one is a triple, I guess it's not really triple. This is a laser, big old laser beam. This phase, while generally not considered the hardest, in some ways is actually one of the more annoying because he has cloaking. And he's going to cloak right away. And then when he comes out of the cloak, he's going to basically unleash a huge volley of weapons on us, which is, of course, never fun. Now, there's a few ways you can respond to this with your own cloak. For one, if you want, you can actually power your cloak to full and cloak alongside him. That means that his weapons will not charge and neither will yours. In that case, you may be able to get a volley off and take out his missile launcher, assuming you don't have a crew teleporter. If you have a crew teleporter, I would definitely say you should teleport your, whatever you have. In my case, I have 2 mantises, over to his missile launcher as soon as possible. Because with the missile launcher neutralized, generally the rest of the ship isn't that much of a threat. As long as you have 3 or 4 shields, and then, of course, the 4 levels of this. The weapons that he uses are sort of desynced with each other, so there's never really that much of a threat in this phase of the fight, which is why most people consider it to be the easiest, I believe. So your primary concern, regardless of whether you have cloak, regardless of whether you have a crew teleporter, in my opinion, should be to absolutely bombard this missile launcher and keep it damaged and destroyed. If you can take care of that, the next step should be to just weaken their shields and start, actually killing the ship. Once you get a little bit more comfortable with this fight, it's also a good idea to try to take out as much crew as you can, because come phase 3, they will start boarding your ship en masse, and if you have a low crew count, it can be very difficult to deal with that. So just be wary of that he will eventually start boarding you. But I'm actually just going to record this entire fight as I go through it, and I'll sort of try to talk as I'm going and such if I think of anything else. So, yeah, here we go. Oh, yeah, power. I'm going to go ahead and power up my my shields to level 4. We're going to leave the drones off right now. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to wait until his first volley of missiles, and I'm going to cloak that, just dodge the missiles. That's all I'm really worried about. And then hopefully by the time he would have a chance to get a second volley off, my mantises will have done in the crew member and the system itself. If not, we may end up taking a missile or two, but considering how tanky we are otherwise, I don't really think it's going to be that big of an issue. So we're just going to have to sit here and wait until his cloak is done. And actually, just to optimize this, if you want, if you have your crew teleporter ready, somewhere around right here is where that station is. So you can actually just spam click right here. I don't know if you can probably hear me spam clicking. And there you go. My guys are over there instantly. Now, again, I was fortunate enough to get a weapon pre-igniter. If you did not have a weapon pre-igniter, your weapons would just now be starting to charge up, which is, again, why it's really nice to have a crew teleporter for this fight to just go right in there. But I'm just going to take advantage of the fact that my weapons are ready, so we're going to unleash a volley of ion on the shields. And thankfully, they both hit. And now I'm just going to go ahead and fire both of my burst lasers on the shield as well. I generally find that unless you have a setup that will guarantee you to keep the shields down permanently, and the easiest one to do that with is an Ion Blast 2. A single Ion Blast 2 can take out the enemy shields indefinitely. I usually find it's good to use the ion weapons you have to try to weaken the shields a little bit, then use your real weapons to attack the shields and do actual damage to them, at which point you can use your ion to start disabling systems that you find annoying. You know, whatever systems you find that are kind of annoying. Okay, so here comes the first missile volley, as I said, right on time, so I'm going to go ahead and cloak that. Cloaking puts our evasion up to 100%, meaning that we will not suffer any further ill will. So again, now that I've managed to take down the shields, I'm actually going to try to ion their cloak. That way they'll stay in the fight a little bit more. Of course, with their cloak being out of the way, I need to make sure that I'm kind of, wary of how much damage I'm doing and such, because I don't want to accidentally destroy the ship while my crew is on board. But we should be good to go ahead and take a few more shots here. So go ahead and do that and try to do some damage to the crew. And just for the sake of science, I want to see if I can, in fact, take out the weapon before it gets a second shot off. Okay, and you can. Okay, so if you have fully leveled mantises, I'm not sure if other crew members can do it. Off the top of my head, I'm not certain. And if you know, please feel free to leave a comment. You can take out the missile launcher before it gets a second shot off, even when they have crew there. So we'll go ahead and pull our mantises back. We'll go ahead and set them up to go get healed. And I'm going to try to do another volley on the captain here, because he's kind of low on health. Seems like the enemy crew members will really only go to heal if they have less than 25 health or so. It's like around 20 is the threshold where they say, okay, I should probably go get this checked out. Their arms fell off or whatever, and they're like, yeah, maybe now I should take a look at that. So again, I got carried pretty hard, so this phase was pretty easy, but in general, this phase isn't too hard. Just be patient, be careful. If you have, 4 shields, I would definitely recommend using them. And, yeah, I think as long as you're patient and take your time, I think this fight isn't too bad. So we'll hop over after I get everybody sort of rehealed and repositioned, and we'll do phase 2. Okay, phase 2 of the fight. Most people consider this to be the nastiest part of the fight, and with good reason, because it can definitely be pretty devastating. However, there are a few little tricks and tips I can give you here. And for one, this is actually, I would say, the phase where defensively he is the weakest. You have a much better shot of being able to just cripple his defenses and start killing him quickly in this phase. In the first phase, he has Cloak, which is extremely annoying, especially if you don't have a pre-igniter like I'm fortunate enough to have. And in the third phase, he has that really, really big Zoltan shield, which I think has maybe even like 15 hits you have to do to it. 10 or 15, it's a lot. It's definitely a lot. But this phase, he has nothing special defensively. Well, I take that back. He usually does have defense drones, but as a rule of thumb, I generally don't really like missiles. So only the defense drones Mark II will give us any problem if he has one. So as with phase 1, your goal should definitely be to take this out as quickly as possible. If you have mantises, they should be able to take it out before a shot gets off. However, if you don't, there is a specific timing that you can do, I believe, where if you have a full cloak available, if you cloak right before the missiles are about to hit you, the cloak will still be active by the first time that the drones go out. I'm fairly certain of that. So that means you can kind of stretch it out. Now, this is predicated on the idea that you're not shooting while that cloak is active, unless you have stealth weapons, one of my favorite upgrades. So just a nice little tidbit trick. As far as using your cloak in this fight in general, I would definitely say you should use it to cloak the drone assault, and I would definitely only do a single power cloak on that. I wouldn't do the entire thing. I would just wait for the drone assault to come out, cloak, and you should be fine. Even if it doesn't last for the entire drone assault, it still will hopefully be enough. So, all right, now that we're into actual fight, we're going to go ahead and do crew teleporter here. And again, since I'm carried heavily in this run, we're going to go ahead and eye on the shields. And we hit with only one of them, but that's fine. I'm going to go ahead and unleash both burst lasers there. Another note is that they almost always have a boarding drone in this fight. I've actually generally found that the best thing to do, unless you have a good crew to sort of tangle with it, is just to leave it alone. If it's going to start attacking something that's really, truly vital, you should definitely maybe look into, taking it out. But in this case, it's in my door system. Door system is nice and all, but it's not that important. I mean, if you want to, you can send a crew member over to tangle with it, but the fact that the oxygen is being drained from that room, unless you have some spare power to pump your oxygen up, your guys are just going to take a bunch of damage, and it's not even really worth it. So as long as you just keep a constant eye on the attack drone, it really shouldn't be anything to worry about. Just make sure that you do keep a constant eye on it. So I'm going to let time progress here for a little bit. Watch my mantises do their thing. Oop, forgot to set my ion blast to auto fire. Okay, so we have some hits coming in. Okay, here comes the power surge. There we go. Alright, and I'm just going to go ahead and cloak it. I'm pretty sure I'm safe anyway, but just to be double, triple safe, I'm just going to go ahead and fire my cloak. Because why not? And we're going to start attacking the crew. Okay, so he was able to take out the system there. And actually, another thing you can do, because they are so relentless about firing off more of these drones, is actually send like an NG to go fight it. Because what the NG will do is it'll suck killing it. It'll just buy you a bunch of time. Because if you kill it, it's just going to refire and land into somewhere else, which could be an important system or something like that. Also, I think I'm going to go ahead and use an anti-ship system. Why not? So we're just going to go ahead and come back through here. Again, always be mindful of your shields as well. If you do still have your cloak available, use them shields to your best advantage. Okay, so here we go. We're going to endure another volley here. My cloak is almost ready, but not quite. And my poor little NG, who I sent as a little plaything for the drone, is starting to get a little too beat up. So we're going to have to pull him back a little bit, but that's fine. And we're just going to go ahead and finish off the ship here. We got our mantises back safely, so no problem. Now, that went pretty darn smoothly. With my ship being sort of overpowered in this case, it's not that surprising to me that went pretty smoothly. But obviously, your results may vary. But just keep in mind, the important thing is to know is that your cloak will almost barely sort of match the cycle. If you fire your cloak early enough in the first cycle, you can probably catch it at the tail end of the next cycle. Or at worst, what you can do is, even if the big, what I'm talking about by cycles is the drone assault. Even if the drone assault happens, you can still use the cloak to survive the subsequent shots from the regular weapons and such. Nothing wrong with that at all. And I'm just going to go ahead and top my guy off there. But yeah, the second phase is definitely one that has put an end to many runs out there. So it really takes patience and focus. And you really just got to be willing to spam that space bar and examine your situation every time you finish an action. Just look at it and say, okay, do I have crew in the right spots? Do I need to worry about powering or depowering any systems? What's going on? What do I need to do in order to seal the deal? So yeah, we're going to hop over to phase 3, and I'll see you in a minute. Okay, and here we are, phase 3 of the fight. This is where ion weapons in particular are extremely useful because they are so darn good at taking out their shields. Another thing to note, the I think underappreciated anti-ship beam weapon is really good against Zoltan shields. It takes out 2 points of Zoltan shield per shot and tends to shoot fairly quickly. And then, of course, subsequently will be used to do great amounts of damage once the entire shield is down. So if you have one of those, hang on to it. Those things are actually pretty nice. I mean, they're sort of one of those things that are only really good in a normal fight if you've already taken down their shields, at which point you're probably going to be able to kill them anyway. But for the last fight, I think they're actually really good. They definitely do tons of damage. So yeah, this fight is considered to be, this part of the fight is considered to be not super difficult. If you've managed to make it through part 2, you're usually pretty good to make it through this part. Again, if you don't have a pre-igniter, you're going to have issues. Maybe getting the external shield out down quickly enough to where you can take out their missile launchers. So you're probably going to eat a missile volley or two. I would definitely save your cloak. As long as you have sort of this buffer HP, the missile launcher, while annoying, it only does 1 damage per shot. So it's not like it's going to really destroy your ship single-handedly. If I remember right, though, actually, one thing you can do, and I'll test this here in this particular fight. Let me go ahead and get this started here. I'm going to go ahead and activate the anti-ship drone to get a shot or two in here, just to hopefully help take the thing out a little faster. And it looks like we're going to have to just go ahead and give it a full volley here. Whoa, lots of dodges. Okay. But one thing I think you can do is if you put full power into your cloak, and I'll go ahead and do that. If you cloak the first missile volley at the very last second, like right before the missiles are about to breach your perimeter, so to speak, if you do it right then, I believe that the cloak will still be active, and I'm not even paying attention to the system that my enemy is fighting here. I believe the cloak is still active at the first power surge, just barely. Yep, so there you go. There's a nice little, concise little timing you can do, and I'm actually just going to go ahead and, I think, take out their boarding crew with my boarding crew. I'm just going to let the weapons I have kill off the missile launcher in there. I was able to do that, so there's a nice little timing you can kind of get away with if you have a chance to. And, oh, my poor NG's about to die. I'm paying attention, man. Trying to do some commentary and such. Remember, pause the game, take stock of your surroundings. No harm in doing that. Another nice trick that you can actually do, and this is not really particularly relevant to this, but something I didn't mention earlier since I didn't actually have a Zoltan. If you have a Zoltan crew member powering your cloak, and you just want to use your cloak to dodge a single attack, and that's it, what you can do is you can power the cloak, and then have the Zoltan leave the cloaking area. It'll actually instantly depower the cloak, meaning that the cooldown of it will come up a lot faster, because the cooldown of your cloak is based on when the cloak depowers. When your cloak is unpowered, that's when the cooldown starts. So the sooner you can get the cloak off, turn it off, the better. And we're about to have to eat a second wave of the attacks here. Now, unfortunately, my cloak isn't quite ready. Isn't quite going to be ready, I don't believe. So I'm actually going to disable the anti-ship, and we're going to go all out into evasion. And with 4 levels of shields and that, you're usually able to survive it. But we'll see. Okay, looks like my poor rock band is taking a beating as well. Go ahead and send in the mantises. Okay, so in this case, my cloak actually was ready. So I guess the timing on that worked out pretty nicely. And I'm just going to go ahead and use a single power cloak here just to get the quick dodge in. And there we go. Managed to dodge every attack that he had there. My mantises are definitely doing some work, and I will go ahead and take out their shields for serious this time. Now, I think it's very important to not kill off all the enemy crew members because it sort of turns the ship into an AI ship, and it makes all their systems auto-repair. Now, I've never actually done it before. It may be one of those things that, you know, people say it's a lot nastier than it actually is, but as a general rule of thumb, you know, you've made it this far. There's no harm in leaving this guy on this weapon. This weapon isn't particularly dangerous, so just don't do it. Don't do it. Do yourself the favor, and don't risk it. And we're just going to go ahead and do one last volley, and that will do it. So even though I did get carried pretty hard, hopefully you guys were able to pick up on some hints on how to take the last ship, the flagship out. Note that the last phase is occasionally will kind of throw you a curveball, and they'll actually repower the resultant shield. Sometimes that can actually be more annoying than the big fire, the big shot, the volley that they do, because you'll end up you know, if you're using a heavy ion strategy to take their shield out, then, you know, that sort of gets reset. So it may buy them a little bit more time than if they had just attacked you or something, you know. So it depends on what's going on. I mean, if your ship is being assaulted by a bunch of enemy crew, and you're kind of relying on winning the damage race, so to speak, that can often be kind of a pain. But yeah, that's the fight. That's the game. If you guys have any tips that you'd like to share, I'd love to hear your own. I mean, I didn't go over every single tip and trick in the game, obviously. But sounds like a good thing to start a discussion about in the comment section. So yeah, thanks for watching. Hope you learned something, and I will see you around.